guess where do we start?
How are you?
It's
So I'm Mohammed. I'm Mustafa's power of attorney.
okay.
I think we had some, I don't know how far you are in the case, like with all the information.
Okay. Not particularly far.
I don't know if, I think you met Amar.
Yeah.
I don't know if Amar told you about our complaint to the police department regarding the conversation Mustafa had with Drum.
I've heard about that, but I don't know that much about it.
Okay. So when Mustafa talked to the investigator 2 days after the accident, there's a discrepancy in the report as to what Drum said, Robert Drum, as to what he said on the report, which doesn't match what the recording shows. So we submitted that to the police department, and they issued out a letter in February of 2024 saying that they had identified that this investigator had violated department policy, specifically with regards to Amar's complaint saying that the officer falsified Mustafa's statements.
Okay.
Since then, since we've watched the body cams, we've identified other discrepancies. Like, I'm sure you'll get to it. There's an interview with the children, the three boys, and Jaden, which is the oldest out of the three, says to the psychiatrist or the psychologist that's interviewing him, he tells her that Mustafa had crashed the car and left his 5-year-old sister to bleed to death. And when this forensics interviewer asks him, how did you get this information? Where did you learn that? He says that the detectives told me. Which, I mean, I think it shows that the police were actively lying in Mustafa's case. They're trying to frame him for something. And if you look at the body cams, actually, from the very beginning, from the scene of the accident.
I mean, Mustafa was unconscious, was helicoptered to the hospital. They tested his blood, no alcohol, no drugs, and he was released by the police. So for the 14-year-old child to say, the police told me that Mustafa was on the run, left my 5-year-old baby sister, and if he hadn't run, we could have saved her. That's weaponizing the kids against Mustafa. That's on a forensic body cam with the children. And the Commonwealth Attorney is using the children as witnesses into abuse.
Right.
But the police are actively weaponizing those kids.
And I think the other thing is, if you look at the body cams, you can see that Robert Drum and all these other officers.
Before you go into that, we know there is no abuse. We know that Mustafa loved those children, and the children loved Mustafa. One, because there's
so
home
much of
videos.
that's not coming the ruling side of it, so we don't have to worry about a lot of that.
There is home videos. There's a Google Nest inside the apartment that shows it's a beautiful relationship. He said a lot of it is not coming in.
A lot of the stuff that was in that motion in limine to admit prior bad acts or other bad acts, I think that most of it was excluded, according to Blake. So, I mean, I'm sure there's some of that we need to introduce. I'm brand new to this case. I generally speaking, I'm gonna have to look at the evidence and determine what I think the best defense is. The thing to keep in mind is it's not Mustafa's burden to prove that he's innocent. It's the government's burden to prove that he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. They have a lot of different theories. I can't really put my finger on, even at this point, which one they actually think is true. They at one point they were only going to go forward manslaughter at one point, right? And then they bumped it up to second degree. I think it was like felony murder, and now they indicted first degree. Well, those are all different. Those require all different mental states, and mental state is what defines a crime. That's what you're only guilty for a crime if you're morally culpable, and you're morally culpable based on what you're thinking. So I'm not really clear on what they think their theory is, and some of them are more ludicrous than others. Like I just think the whole premeditation idea is nonsense, and I kind of hope that they pursue that. So like like I said, if they went forward on premeditation, it seems like that's just on the face of it, that's ridiculous. Who premeditates a car crash that they know they're going to survive, but two other people aren't? Like how does that happen?
He has a dash camera in the car.
I know, and like that's what Blake was saying. Blake was saying one of the stronger pieces of evidence for him is they keep saying that there was this argument between the two of them, when it looked like the argument was more about like he was trying to get the kid to put her seatbelt on, leaning back, telling her to put her seatbelt on, and so yeah, I mean, there's the fact that they're going to have to rely on like lip readers and so many inferences are going to have to be drawn. They've got a lot of work to do to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. So like, that's where my focus starts is what is their evidence? What is their evidence? And yes, like if we have strong proof of bias by the police, then that can supplement our defense. Usually you don't want just straight up bias to be like biased police officers to be your defense. That doesn't usually work in a place like Prince William County, but it certainly can help. So yes, like if you have proof that Drum lied in his police report, oh for sure. Well, that will
there's
be
an
brought,
audio.
Yes,
There's an audio of the conversation.
I will relish the opportunity to confirm with that on cross-examination. And of course, if they make a big deal out of like certain evidence in their case in chief, like if they do get into some issues related to whatever feelings towards the children or allegations, I don't think they're going to be able to get into like anything like physical, but feelings, they're going to have to get into feelings towards like the mom at least. So if they get into that stuff, then yeah, then in our case, then we can present the other recordings of this household seeming
The Google Notes video.
Yeah. So and that usually if their case is weak to begin with, and then in the defense case, we start introducing evidence showing like, wow, they really stretched the truth, and then what they told the jury in the first half of the trial was, this doesn't check out. Like, and the jury will start feeling like, like we were misled on this point, and so that's generally how we use that stuff. The first things I want to learn more about are, I want to learn all about all of it. I don't know that any of it. I don't know that I know that any of it is more important than any other parts yet. But like I want to understand the actual crash itself. So like one of the I asked for experts last week, and one of them is Sam Dworkin. He's an investigator and a mitigation specialist. Sam is I worked with him on big cases before. He's great, but he also, with him, he has employees that he can pay a little less to review discovery, including with Mustafa at the jail. So that we got that funding, and then Sam will help with anything that I wanted to do. But then we got Invista Digital Forensics. So they have both a cell phone guy and digital media type guy. So I know there's a lot of like extractions of phones and things like that, but also they have a vehicle data guy at Invista. So I think the police had one, right, where they got the data off of the car and sort of said what they think happened in terms of like braking and turning and all that sort of thing. I mean, I guess you can see this on the dash cam, but like that, the intention of that was to help understand kind of how this all played out. So that's some of what I want to look at, but it's like a huge project. It's like I just gotta go day by day and start learning more every other day, maybe every third day. As I mentioned over text, just like you don't need to worry about my effort and my work ethic and the amount of time I'm gonna put into this, but I need y'all's understanding as well that I just started this business, so I don't actually, things are going well so far, but like I've done a big case like this. I did a 5-week jury trial in Fairfax back in 2016-17 before I became chief public defender, and I was doing it for free basically. So for 5 weeks I was making no money at all, and that's fine. I love my job, and especially when there's a case that seems like it's deeply unjust what's happening, I don't mind at all. Actually, I relish the opportunity to get in court and fight for Mustafa, but also just in the lead up to it, I also I've got other stuff. I got to make money. I've got to make sure that I can take 3 weeks off in February and March of next year. Not 3 weeks off, but 3 weeks of unpaid work. So I'm just going to be, at times if you can't reach me, it's not that I'm ignoring anyone, especially Mustafa. I know he's obviously gets anxious in there, and I know how unsettling it must be to be in a jail where he's been mistreated. But I'm going to talk to him next time I see him, just to say, like, hey, if you can't get through to me, it's not because I don't want to talk to you. It's just like, we've got to manage expectations here. And so actually, I think I've had that conversation with tons of clients, and just when they know how often or when they're going to speak with me, it's easier, than just calling all the time and me not picking up, and they worry why I'm not picking up. Whereas if I go there next time and say, hey, man, I'm not going to be able to talk to you for like a week and a half, but call me on this day, I'll pick up the phone, we'll talk, or I'll be here on this day, we'll talk. I have an hour and a half to spend in jail, that sort of thing. Anyway, kind of get far afield from what you guys were talking about.
Oh, Brad, were you able to get so we paid $5,000 for a crash reconstruction. It's an independent crash reconstruction from the previous attorney, and he went in. And were you able to reach out to that crash inspector and get the file from him?
Who did that? Was it Blake?
No, it was under Casey Stevens.
Oh, okay.
But at some point, Blake argued in the court that he wanted the rights to what the findings were to that file, and Judge Weimer told Blake that if the previous attorney doesn't give it to you, you can sue for it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then
that's the law. The law is that the file belongs to the client. That's quite clear.
So
and actually, I used to do when I worked at this firm, as a partner here. Used to do a lot of post conviction. So people do claims of ineffective assistance of counsel, and very frequently the attorney who you're claiming was ineffective will be like, I don't want to give you my file, and then you have to give them the ABA standards, like, no, this isn't your choice. This is my client's file. You give it to me.
So Blake got in an argument with Casey Stevens' partner in the hallway, and she apologized and said, I'm going to give you the entire file. I'll send it to you. This was like months ago, and she agreed to send him the file. I believe Blake got the file, and when we talked to him, he said that he's more than willing to share it with you.
I think he gave most of what he had to Mark Williams, at least the discovery. I don't know if there's any expert stuff. In Mark Williams' office is mailing. They said they mailed me the two hard drives in that, I guess. I haven't received them yet. I hope I get them soon. I'll follow up with them if they don't get them today.
I have a question for you with regards to the hard drive. So initially, Elaine, I don't know if you know Elaine Jarvis.
I read about her because of this case, but I didn't know her before that.
So Elaine Jarvis filed a federal case in the Eastern District.
Yeah, I heard about that.
A 1983 case. And at some point, things began to fall out. She was getting threats from different entities from the county, and she basically backed out. She chickened out. She said, I'm going to withdraw, and I have nothing to do with this. Prince William County is actually prosecuting her currently for contempt of court. They're accusing
violating the discovery order.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why she had to withdraw, right?
No, she withdrew prior to that.
She withdrew.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But after she withdrew, they put a charge on her. They're accusing her of disseminating discovery material, and this entire time she's had the hard drive.
The phone dump. The
phone data.
Cell phone data dump.
Okay. And now she's suing Amar for.
She's pinning it on me.
She's pinning
whatever
on
they're charging her, whatever the county's charging her, she's like,
She filed an injunction in Warren County, telling a judge that Amar needs to stop talking about the discovery, that he stole this material from her, which is not true, but we'll see what happens in court. But that's what she's accusing Amar. And in the meantime, we're active on social media. We find out that there's an individual that Elaine is representing. This individual was an advocate for Mustafa at some point, and then decided to, for whatever reason, to change their mind. This person is posting pictures from Mustafa's data dump. And the reason why we know this is because there are certain photos of my mom, like my mom wears a scarf. So there's private photos from Mustafa's phone that are being leaked onto the internet by this individual that's being represented by Elaine. So we have reason to believe that the data dump is compromised. I don't know if Elaine would delete certain stuff from this hard drive. Our concern is, are you able to get the full drive from the county just to
It's a
ensure
good
that
idea.
nothing is deleted out of it?
That's a good idea. I should do that.
And I think because it went to Blake, it went to Elaine, it went to Mark Williams, and we find out that Mark Williams, who initially had a good relationship with us, suddenly, this relationship deteriorated very quickly. And we find out that Elaine Jarvis had called him and told Mark Williams that we're a bunch of scammers, that we record him without his knowledge, that we're gonna tarnish his reputation. And basically she had an hour conversation with Mark Williams, specifically telling him not to talk to us, not to deal with us, she basically ruined that relationship. And I think she did that out of, anger with Amar or whatever the issue is. But that relationship, deteriorated really, really quickly. We had a very good conversation with him. We were on good terms. We supplied him with a lot of the discovery material ahead of the prosecutor. And Elaine Jarvis, I think, and I don't know what other entities are out there, but they're actively pursuing whatever lawyer comes onto the case. They're calling this lawyer. Even Blake was telling me that he was getting threatening emails regarding Mustafa's case. And I think we're just telling you a heads up that there's a lot of entities.
A whole
obviously.
bunch of people told me that even before I had met Mustafa, which was a little odd, but that's what happened. So I'm aware that I can only control what I can control. I can control how hard I work on a case. I can control how much, how committed I am to it. That sort of thing. I just gonna have to deal with it if it comes. If it doesn't.
Yes, sir.
I find personally if I
مرة الدرام تقعد ويا كريستين الدرام.
Brad, when you go through these body cams, you're gonna find in one of the body cams that the wife of the investigator, Robert Drum, that falsified Mustafa's statement on the police report, who we have a recording of. In that body cam, you'll have, he has his wife on three-way, a wife that used to be a dispatcher for the police department, but no longer a dispatcher for the police department at the time. She's on three-way. And he has someone that identified as a witness, Amy Hodson. Now, Amy Hodson says, I don't know Mustafa. I don't know his girlfriend. And Mustafa killed Dorothy on purpose. And when Drum asked her, how do you know this information? She said, highly. Dorothy's 16-year-old daughter at the time, who I took her into my house and I'm taking care of her, is feeding me this information, is telling me this.
Yeah.
So that witness immediately is hearsay. That's hearsay. That's not a witness.
right.
Now, when this Amy Hobson, the one that's saying the hearsay, is on the internet under Christine Aljazairi, a different identity, a different name, gaslighting the situation, gaslighting the story, with the investigator's wife under a different username. K0, every day they go live for the past 2 years, and they actively gaslight the case of Mustafa Al-Jazairi. Now, how do we know this? The voice is on the body.
I'm glad you brought that up. Sounds like you've been tracking kind of what has been put online or in the media about the case, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you have it collected somewhere?
Yes.
Do you think so? What would be super helpful? Because I told you I'm going to move to change venue. Basically, every social media post, internet blog post, news article, local news article, anything that can be found that talks about this case. That's what I will need to be successful with that motion, because that's usually what you're trying to show the court, that it's just so out there in the public in this particular community. If you have that, or if you've done that, or if there's more that you're willing to do, just to kind of look for those things, that would be super helpful to me.
Yes, sir. 2 days into the vehicle accident, the media, the news, NBC4, Fox, Channel 97, they put out a report, a clip. They say investigators say Mustafa crashed into oncoming traffic. 5-year-old Empress was not restrained, and now this is 2 days into the vehicle accident. Now that's all over the news. How could you get a fair trial?
When the car crash,
He did. As a,
Yeah,
ma- she
but
did,
no.
she did.
She did.
As a matter of fact, when you watch the body cam, Mustafa is the one that gestures to Dorothy
Okay.
to go
Put on the
back,
seatbelt.
to put on the seatbelt, and then Dorothy goes back and put the seatbelt on. Now, body cams show, that's what
But in the news article, it said she did not.
she did not.
Okay.
And it's
That
investigators
was-
say,
Yeah.
now,
So
when you,
this-
when you
this-
watch,
This one's I like, 'cause, like, that's the other one with the gun and the ammo thing that was put in the bond motion, where they had to retract it. I can't believe they were allowed to stay on the case after that. Actually, Blake told me, and it was interesting, because I brought it up with him, I said, did you think to try to recuse those prosecutors? And he said, I did think about it, but I didn't want to, because he doesn't think they're very good. And he thought that, and I kind of agree, like, in trial, I know Stephanie Buck from Fairfax, and she's not at all engaging with juries. I don't know Sarah Sammy, but I heard she's not very good with juries. But, like, usually if you say something like that that's totally false to the media, like, those are pretty strong grounds to get an attorney kicked off the case. You know, if it was coming from the investigator in this case, I don't know. It would be more just cross-examination.
oh, it gets worse.
material. But
It gets worse.
But regardless, like the
Brad.
fact that they put it out there in the public and they knew it to be false would be grounds, would be a strong argument for venue change.
Brad, in the body cam, you'll see the main investigators say that Dorothy is restrained.
Okay.
Not really.
Oh, a 5-year-old Empress is restrained.
Okay.
The witness are saying, I cut the seatbelt off of 5-year-old Empress to get her out.
Okay.
These are on the body cam. Now, it gets more disturbing when you talk about the prosecutor, because the first bond motion, the prosecutor flat out lie and say, I have a witness that will testify to you, and Your Honor, I will, what is the word, the proffer?
Proffer.
She proffered to the court in Mustafa's first bond motion. She said, Your Honor, I have a witness that this individual got in Mustafa's vehicle, and Mustafa crashed the vehicle on purpose, giving this guy a head injury.
Traumatic brain injury.
Traumatic
Giving
head injury.
who-
Like some random person by the name of Jason.
Now, the judge,
would have been like the driver of his life.
no, she said this individual
She's
got,
saying that this is unrelated, that in the past, Mustafa had driven his car and crashed it on purpose, giving his passenger a traumatic brain injury.
because of this, the judge denied Mustafa the bond. Now, we found out that this individual that she's proffering, his name is Jason Stantz. This is Jason Nance. This is a local individual that has problems.
He was in the military,
Oh, really?
so this Jason Nance was in the military years ago.
Jason,
Jason Nance, N-A-N-C-E. That this individual has medical issues, mental issues. His record is full of charges, biting police officers, spitting at police officers, lying to police. This is the kind of person that, but this is what Sarah Sammy used in court to have the judge deny Mustafa bond.
But they backed off. They had to retract that too. Is that right?
I'm not sure, but the following bond, the next bond hearing, she never mentioned it. Never even brought it
It's
up.
just flat out lie about an individual this individual never got in Mustafa's car. This never happened, but she flat out lies on a bond to get Mustafa bond denied. The second bond with Judge Weimer, she tells Judge Weimer gives Mustafa a $5,000 bond. She says, Your Honor, I wanna appeal this decision.
I read all that.
That's illegal. She never went through the appeal process.
Can she do that? She wanted the judge to put a stay on the bond so that she can find out how long it would take for the prosecution to get an appeal. That was the entirety.
Yeah, I read that.
But then she retries the bond
Like
when
it's.
she comes back.
I know what you mean. I don't think there would be any like thing that would be like actionable on our end on that. Like, you can ask a judge to stay a ruling, so you can appeal. You can ask a judge to stay a ruling, so you can file a motion to reconsider. What she said initially was, yeah, like she wanted it stayed until she could determine the appeal. But there's nothing that would preclude her from asking for reconsideration and do what she did.
Well, Brad, she comes back and she says, Your Honor, I have a lip reader that will testify to Mustafa that Dorothy said Empress is in the vehicle. And she said, I have a lip reader. And then 2, Mustafa threatened a correctional officer
A month ago.
a month ago. Now,
So
Now,
even prior to the initial bond hearing.
the problem here is, in Mustafa's discovery, The lip reader, she never had a lip reader at the time. She got that lip reader 2 months later, only to say exactly what she is talking about. That Dorothy was in, said, I want to get out of the car. And what's disturbing about what they're saying is that Dorothy wants to get out of the car. There is no, when you watch those clips in that dash camera, there's no indication that Dorothy said, I want to get out of the car. As a matter of fact, at one point, she's gesturing to Mustafa, giving him direction.
She's telling him where to turn, what, 1 minute prior to the accident?
That's all, yeah, all that's gonna be super
Yeah.
important. That's the kind of thing that also, yeah, I wanna know what they're gonna say, but also we might need our own person. I don't, was an expert hired for that?
The bigger problem, yes, the bigger problem is, apparently, in the discovery, there's a document that says Officer Zymus, with Forensic Digital, admit that there is a clear audio track in this dash camera and the audio capability is on. So why would you need a lip reader to have the audio? We've been saying for 2 years that this dash camera does not have audio.
But nobody's ever heard any audio, right?
Well, on a body cam, Investigator Drum is talking about the content of what's being said in the car.
And
And-
so, yeah, during the conversation with Casey Stevens, when they're inspecting the vehicle, he says something, I mean, you can hear it in the body cam, he says they're talking about courts. That's what he says, he says they're talking something about courts, and he's referring to what's inside the car. And then the other thing is, in his written discovery, he says that Dorothy was screaming. So, you know.
Yeah, so one of the things that we'll do on that point, the things that we can do with stuff like that, one, we can put out a motion for to compel production of specific Brady material. So, if there are things they haven't disclosed, we ask for them specifically, and then maybe even ask for a hearing, and then put whoever was responsible for that, processing that evidence, put them on the stand and explain why they would have said that, why this stuff doesn't exist. So that's like one thing we do in court. Another thing we could do is, the digital forensic experts I have, we'll ask for the actual data, the raw data, and then we'll be able to process whatever data they give. And if our expert finds audio, then we would be able to use it.
No, the bigger problem is,
If none of it exists, then we could, I think there was, it's referenced in a motion, maybe it was the motion. If the government fails to adequately preserve evidence, especially if it's exculpatory, you can even move to dismiss. You can move for any equitable remedy, but you may be even able to move to dismiss a case. If it's, if there were, for example, they knew there was DNA on, and they just threw the DNA away, and there's some proof they did it in bad faith because they thought it might exonerate someone, then that would definitely be grounds to go into court and say this is a corrupt investigation. Judge, we can't trust that any outcome will be fair. You have to dismiss the case. But here we'll have to see what we've got. But those are all kinds of things we can do. The kinds of things we can do with that. That sounds like an interesting thing to pursue for sure.
Brad, the bigger problem is, this accident happened on April 5th. There's a body cam in July, I have the date, July something. There's a body cam that Drum reaches out to the company that makes this dash camera. And what's disturbing is the police department says there's no audio, right? Well, nowhere in this conversation does Drum talk to Rexon about why does your dash camera not have audio. He's
What does
talking
the
about,
guy say? Does the
Yeah.
staff guy explain what the audio is?
He does. So
They never talk about the audio.
well, no, he said, if you have, he said, Drum asked, he doesn't talk about the audio, but he tells him this dash camera cuts off before impact. Why is this, where is the rest of the dash camera? He says, give me whatever files that you have. He says, this dash camera, in case of an accident, in case of a shock, this camera is so sophisticated that it will make 2 files. One file,
It has a G sensor, so when it detects the impact, it saves a copy of that area into a separate file. So now you have 2 recordings of the incident, one in a incident file, and then you have the recordings of the main file. Now,
Now, in the discovery, when you open the discovery, like, and when you go to evidence.com, and they'll give you a dash camera, what they'll actually give you, all they'll give you is a dash camera that's cut off before impact. But Rexon is talking about, there is no way this would happen. Give us whatever files we have. Give us the SD cards, and we will recover the file for you. Our
Did they do
file
that?
will never. He said our files will never be corrupted, and if for any reason you
What's
can't
the name
open
of
it,
the-
Rexing USA,
How's it spelled?
REXING. And we reached out to Rexing, technical support. We told them a little bit of the backstory, what's going on. And what they told me is, as long as the audio capability is turned on, they can always recover any corruption. So as long as you had the audio capability turned on, then they can retrieve the audio, as long as you give them the original files.
Do you know if the prosecutors or anyone ever explained, like, did they ever say that they took steps to try to get that or to recover it? Do you know if that was ever?
I
well,
think
Chad Mason got on the stand.
so. Chad Mason got on the stand. He said that he admitted that he violated department policy with regards to digital evidence when they took the dash cam and plugged it into their laptop. So they're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to send this item to forensics, and forensics is supposed to make I think what they called a image.
Yeah.
They make an image, and then
So he thinks that was he claiming that by plugging it in, it corrupted the data?
I think that's what Blake was going for. I think, and Chad Mason admitted on the stand that he did plug it into his laptop. Him and Drum plugged it into their laptops prior to sending it to forensics. And in that process, maybe they deleted it, whether intentional or not.
So.
But Rexon is talking
so the
about.
recollection.
But Rex, yeah.
So they play with the camera
Mhm.
and they mess with the car. They smash it to show direct
The car.
head-on collision.
The police mechanic.
So they corrupt.
The police
Bottom
mechanic
line.
inspects
There's a
the
body
car.
cam. There's a body cam.
Like two things.
Yeah.
like-
There's a body cam. You go ahead.
So the police take the vehicle to inspection, and they identified that the caliper, the rear caliper, I think two of the calipers were not working, and that the other brake pads were
This is brake failure.
were sticky. So they identified that there's some kind of failure in the car with regards to brakes. And in their report, they say that they can't identify what the cause of the failure is. Okay? Now, from the images that the police department took, you can see that the drive shaft is completely dislocated from the transmission, that the engine and transmission mount are broken.
Did any of Mustafa's attorneys have the information, like have the mechanic look at it, or forensic
No. So the guy that we paid for with Casey Stevens initially,
crash reconstruction again?
he was able to inspect the car from the outside.
Yeah, so there's a judge order to inspect the vehicle. In the police report, in the discovery, it says that the police department allowed this crash reconstruction to fully inspect the vehicle. But when you watch the body cam, Robert Drum, the same individual that falsified the police report, they did not allow, he tells them, absolutely not, you can't touch the vehicle.
Yeah, so this expert wanted to examine the brakes in more detail. He wanted the car, he wanted to remove the tires. And the police and the prosecutor on the scene tell him that, no, you're not allowed to touch the vehicle in any way.
But there's a judge order.
But there is a judge order.
And in the discovery, it says we let him touch the vehicle.
Yeah, so there's nowhere in any of the reports stating that they did not allow him to fully examine the car. And then we find out from this expert after, months after that.
Sorry, and this was. Which expert was not allowed to? Was it the defense expert or?
Yeah,
was it
defense expert. Yeah. And we find out later from this expert, months later, that Casey Stevens had specifically told him not to do a written report.
This one degree.
But Casey Stevens.
That's normal.
Yeah, but Casey. Yeah.
Is that-
I
Yes,
agree.
because you have reciprocal discovery
Finish, right?
obligations.
Right.
So you don't generally write a report unless you're going to use the person as a witness and it's going to be helpful to you.
Right, but I think you would agree that it's abnormal to tell your client that the expert is writing up the report. We have him examining the data. It takes about a month to get this information put on the report, and then at the same time he's telling the expert to never write a report.
I don't know
Yeah.
what went on there. A lot of it's kind of semantics, just so you don't have the reciprocal discovery obligation. So like an email from an expert explaining kind of what they were generally were seeing wouldn't be considered a report, and you wouldn't have to turn that over. But you know, if they make it more formal, then it becomes a report,
Yeah.
and then you
خلي
have to
أرجع-
turn
Well, you know, when the-
أذكركم على الكاميرا.
Yeah.
الكاميرا لما سأل كيز ستيفن نفس السؤال إنه هاي تروح بالكلاود because they have something wrong.
I think my mom was pointing out is that Robert Drum, when he was talking to Rexing, technical support, he was specifically trying to find out, are there copies of this footage anywhere else? Is it automatically uploaded to a cloud that I don't know about?
Right.
He wants to know if there are copies of this footage anywhere else. And we believe, it's our belief, that Robert Drum is trying to contain this video because they want to put out a narrative.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that when they do put out this narrative about this camera not having audio or footage or more video, that nobody else is going to come out and say, oh, actually, we were able to get it from the cloud,
Right.
and it contradicts what the police are saying.
He did a crime like.
He's not concerned about the audio. They claim that there is no audio, but he never asked about the audio. I mean, wouldn't you think
And
if
then
you're calling the technical support, that's the first thing you do?
you know, the other thing that is odd is that Robert Drum never reaches out to Rexing until Amar gets a copy of this dash cam. So from the moment the accident happened up until July, no one's talking about it, no one's doing anything. But then Amar gets a copy of the dash cam in July. And as soon as Amar gets a copy of it, he posts it to the internet. That's when you have Robert Drum is now worried about how did he get this footage? Where is, you know, is there copies? And then he's digging deep into like the coordinates, the speed on the footage, but he never questions where's the audio.
No.
So we also reached out to Rexing, and they told us that as long as you get the files, we will always be able to, not always, but he said that if the files are corrupt, they can fix the audio issue as long as the audio capability is turned on. Now with Blake, he said, Blake was telling us that if I find out that the audio capability was turned on, I'm definitely getting an expert to examine this footage. Like I'm definitely going after these files. But I have to make sure that the audio capability was turned on. I don't want to bring it up in court. You know, I don't want to say, he says, I don't want to file anything in court and then find out later that Mustafa had turned off this capability.
Right.
But we did find out eventually. And, you know, that process never, like...
The problem we
How
had
did you
with,
find out that the audio was on?
because I have the file.
From digital forensics.
Digital forensics.
They have a report,
Yeah,
and it
in the
says that
discovery.
audio capability, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a clear audio track in this dash camera. ما. So in the discovery, there's a document that says Officer Zymus says the audio capability is on, and there's a clear audio track in this dash camera. So the problem with Blake is he said if I find out, but we did find out, but then he wanted to move into trial without recovering the audio, and we said absolutely not.
And yeah, and then the other thing is, with regards to the vehicle itself, I think at the hospital, Mustafa was being interrogated by Officer Chad Mason, Surdam, and a nurse. And all three of them are interrogating Mustafa on the hospital bed. When he was helicoptered in, Officer Surdam, who was told to turn off his body cam when dealing with Mustafa by Investigator Chad Mason.
You'll hear that on the body cam. That he's being ordered to turn off
He
his body
tells
cam.
him, make sure your body cam is off whenever you're interacting with Mustafa, which is odd, okay?
It's a...
So at the hospital, Mustafa arrives from the helicopter. Mustafa's continuously asking about Dorothy's well-being, Empress, and he also asks about the other driver, if they're okay. He's concerned about, you know, his girlfriend, and Surdam tells him that Dorothy's okay, that she's being taken care of, she's in another hospital, and Mustafa continuously is pushing this officer that he wants to go see her. He wants to be next to her. And this officer never mentions that in any of the report, and they continuously tell Mustafa that she's okay, she's being taken care of, and they interrogate him. 3 hours later is when Chad Mason comes into the room and tells him, your girlfriend's dead. she's been dead for the past 3 hours. And then they're just sitting there, like, you know.
And you can clearly see Mustafa's crying. Mustafa is broken. And then Chad Mason puts in his police report that Mustafa, what did he say in his police
He
report?
said he's trying to come up with a defense. He said he covered his head, but I don't see tears. So he's faking it.
He falsified the reaction.
First of all, those opinions aren't going to be evidence, but yes, it's like, I know what you mean, it's enraging when they're that biased. But like, things like that, they're not going to be able to submit a police report and evidence at trial. And if he opines as to why, like, unless this trial judge is a total hack, which I don't think he is on this point, they wouldn't let stuff like that in. And also, just so you know, I hate it too. I remember actually a case that I did here with my law partner, John Sheldon. Do you remember that George Hughley, the UVA lacrosse player who was alleged to kill his girlfriend, who's also a UVA lacrosse player? It happened about 15 years ago. Anyway,
Yeah.
they knew that the girl was dead. The investigators knew that she'd been dead for like 8 or 9 hours by the time they were interrogating George. He didn't know she had been dead, that she was dead. And they just did the first hour of the interrogation, like just talking about her as if she was alive. And it was on purpose that in the middle, right at the hour mark, they told her she was dead and that she was gone. And of course, he went into like complete despair. But the point was to make him emotionally weak, so that then they could hopefully get, that's all modern interrogation techniques. It's all psychological coercion.
Well, you know, Brad,
that's probably what they were doing.
with this issue, Mustafa's blood, Mustafa's blood has no alcohol, no drugs. Mustafa was injected with 50 mcg of fentanyl by the paramedics. So why would you engage him in a...
He didn't say anything, right?
No, he was crying the whole time.
Yeah.
Now, but to engage Mustafa in an interrogation while under 50 mcg of fentanyl, what's the crime?
And Judge Weimer ruled.
It's not a crime. If they had gotten statements, we would have had grounds to suppress them. If they know that a person has been given medication that affects their cognition, and especially if they wait until that medication is given to them, then there are cases that say that is bad faith by the police. And those.
Let's focus on.
I think the problem here that we're having is, I know you say like legally they can't do this or that, but I think from this information you can gather that the police were targeting him, and some might say, well, he has these accusations, but at the time they haven't inspected the roads, they haven't looked at the car, they haven't talked to the children, they haven't talked to any of the witnesses, and yet here they are.
He shows up, Casey Fine shows up.
Within the first 30 minutes, they've already condemned him guilty.
Oh, so like I said, pointing out the flaws in their investigation, I'm almost positive that's going to be a significant part of our the evidence we present. When you're bringing things up, I'm letting you know the specific things they won't be able to say in court. So and there are many things you've told me that we will be able to bring up to show bias. But just like the mere fact of him having been on fentanyl, actually I don't know. We'll have to see. All this stuff. What we're looking for is what shortcuts did they take? What lack of diligence did they demonstrate? What leads did they not pursue? What innocent explanations did they not consider? Those are the things we're looking for, and then just pointing those out, one after one. And we'll see how far we can get with this, because, honestly, part of me feels like the prosecutors, some of the things they've said are so over the top that it might even be able to get into that. That we're only even here on these certain indictments because of their overzealousness and their lack of objectivity, and I don't know. It's like a lot of this stuff. I litigate pretrial very strategically, and I have to think about what do I really want. Because sometimes you'll fight for something you think you can get, for example, getting these prosecutors recused. A lot of these things sound like we could actually get them kicked off the case, but I don't think we want to. Whoever would get it would probably be a more competent prosecutor. But also, also venue changes. You have to think about that. Where would it be moved to? if it would be moved to like Spotsylvania, no thanks. If it would be moved to like Alexandria or Fairfax, that would be great. So all these things, it's like we have to think about. If I'm going to litigate something like how biased the prosecutors were too, are there other forms of relief I can get out of that? By arguing it, if I argue it and kind of soft pedal it a bit because I don't want them kicked out, like I don't want them kicked off the case, but I do want other kinds of relief. Sometimes you might argue it just because you think that by the time you get to trial, you're going to ask for a jury instruction about that they may consider bias by law enforcement, including the prosecutors. Or you might ask for them to do more work. That's always fun, getting a court to order prosecutors to do more work, like to comb through their own files, to produce things maybe they haven't given to us. Like, for example, their individual communications with all law enforcement. I don't think those are out there, are they? Like, that's up.
You're talking about subpoenas cell phones.
No, like the prosecutors, their emails with all the law enforcement officers or text messages with all the law enforcement officers in this case.
During the investigation.
We can
Throughout
ask,
the
those are the kinds of things you can ask for. Like
Well,
And you can
Well,
FOIA request that, right?
what you're gonna find,
FOIA, there's a FOIA exemption for criminal investigative files, but you can, like, if we have enough to demonstrate bias, which I seem like we do, and they're reckless with the truth, then learning more about their communications to further demonstrate bias might be important.
so one of the biggest things in this case is Mustafa had a lawsuit before the vehicle accident against the police. Now, what we're seeing throughout the body cams is there is a target. They're not investigating a vehicle accident. They're targeting Mustafa. Now, Chad Mason, one of the main investigators, got on the stand and he specifically said there are no brake marks. Well, there are pictures of Mustafa brake marks in the discovery before he entered incoming traffic.
And you can see that from his dash cam. When Mustafa's driving, his travel path is visible on his dash cam. And you can see that the road, the area where Mustafa drove through, there were no skid marks on the dash cam, but then afterwards, you see pictures from the police camera, and there's skid marks like directly where Mustafa was braking.
You see skid marks. The police talk about brake failure. Police mechanic inspected the vehicle and found brake failure. So Mustafa said, when I hit the brake, the vehicle just vibrates. I'm hitting the brake and the vehicle just vibrates. It wouldn't stop. The computer inside the vehicle shows that Mustafa's foot was on the brake the whole entire time. The speed, consistent with the data recorder. The speed dropped from 55 to 35, but the vehicle wouldn't stop. Now, Chad Mason says there are no brake marks. There are clear brake marks.
Yeah, this is their analysis from the data recorder.
And on scene.
So this is so I took a snapshot image of this is Mustafa's car when it's going into the oncoming traffic. You can see here that there's no. So you can see here that there are no skid marks here, okay? And then after the accident, this is after the accident. This is the same road traveled. This is Mustafa's vehicle where it drove.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this SUV was oncoming, and when it collided with Mustafa's car, it rotated and ended up here. So no other car drove through here other than Mustafa's car.
Okay.
And you can clearly see the skid mark. Yeah, there's another skid mark before at the traffic light. If you go on there's a skid mark right there, all the way there.
Whether the skid marks or not, the data showed that.
Yeah, his foot was on the brake the whole time.
And the other thing
But
is,
for Chad Mason to take the stand and lie about brake marks,
I mean,
that's on the record.
شوي بحكي له مختصر
yeah.
about Mustafa filed lawsuit against Stafford County in 2018.
Mhm.
After that, 2018, he almost won the case with about almost $1 million, or
It was $500,000.
yeah.
There were, so at the time we were,
Yeah, خلينا نحكي له مختصرة اللي
yeah,
بحكي له.
we were in the process of settling.
Yeah, when he
And-
met Dorothy,
Mhm.
when that club owner was fighting with Mustafa after he sued the Stafford County. خلينا نقول له, we
Yeah.
have to tell Mr. Haywood what's the conclusion of all this. Why Robert Drum falsified his report? Why Casey finds talk about accusing Mustafa before everything. We think someone tampered with his car the night before. How? After Mustafa.
Well, you have a recording
file
of,
lawsuit.
you have a recording.
Yeah.
This is not a theory.
Well,
Well, let me just say this.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you, so you tell Ms. Haywood.
Yeah.
The relation, all this relation, all what's going on now with Mustafa. Mustafa filed lawsuit, and then Mustafa was promoting his. They know where Mustafa stand. This police.
What you're
Okay,
saying
they-
is when you have a lawsuit against the police,
Okay. Yeah, Robert.
Mustafa has a lawsuit against the police. Well, what we're finding in this whole entire case is Mustafa met Dorothy
Yeah.
a month after he had a giant problem with a club owner out of Arlington.
Yeah.
Now,
so-
Well, let me just say this. Well, now we're finding is that Dorothy's daughter that doesn't live at the apartment lives with her father.
Right, I've heard.
You've heard about this.
Yeah.
Her
so-
dad worked for Billy, and this is Amy Ashworth, the Commonwealth Attorney, is using this individual that says I don't live at the apartment. So she's not there.
Yeah.
She didn't see anything, and she's being a character witness into Mustafa that he abused her mother, abused the kids.
And she's asking
Now-
them for it to kill Mustafa.
And I have a recording. I have a private investigator that went and sat down with Winford, the ex-boyfriend, who the Commonwealth is also using as a witness, who says, I never met Mustafa. Mustafa does not know me, but he abuses Dorothy. Did you see anything? No, he abuses the kids. Did you see anything? No, that's on a body cam, by the way. This is the ex-boyfriend. Now,
That is not, I don't think I think that was also part of that, that comes in, but, so there's, getting into like prior incidents is a double-edged sword, because although you might be able to prove bias, maybe, from like a lawsuit or other involvement with police, you're also bringing up involvement with police.
yeah.
So that, I think most lawyers would say that's not worth going, like, the investigation itself, like, it speaks for itself how shoddy it was. And I think Prince William jurors probably, or will be even more just, you know, if it's like Keystone Cops and they're just total hacks, I don't know that that is like a more satisfying position for jurors to take than a lot of them aren't going to want to like say like I believe that police are out there like conspiring against community members. But the bigger issue is that you open the door to them discussing, well, what was this other incident? Because then they get to get into their side of things, and you don't want that, for sure.
You know, Brad, what we're having a problem with, Amy Ashworth is using a witness that she wants to put on the stand. You killed my mother. She wants to have this white girl say, you killed my mother. Well, this girl, I have a recording where the ex-boyfriend is saying she came up to me before the vehicle accident, and she said, let's kill Mustafa, and so we make it look like an accident. I have that recording.
Can you show Mustafa?
Now,
all
there's
that
motive.
stuff, all that stuff is fair game, and that was
Yeah.
the kind of thing. If they're going to rely on kids for important testimony, like that, that's I wouldn't want to do that, like because kids aren't great witnesses, and kids are very easy to cross-examine. So you know anything we have in terms of that would show that she fabricated any of this, or that the kid was biased, like those things matter a lot.
In the forensic interview, the forensic intervieor asked her, why are you here? Mom, she said, why are you here? She said, my dad is making me come here. Who's your father? Her father works for Billy, pierces all the strippers. Her father is the one that went viral because Mustafa was outside his club promoting his business.
And who hired this?
Now, these are clearly, there is bias into what Amy Ashworth is. There is clear motive to talk negative about Mustafa. There's a video in the Discovery, a month before the vehicle accident. Kylie sneaks into the vehicle, and the video is so obvious that you can clearly say, you know, when you're talking to a 5-year-old and you're trying to solicit a reaction that they're not telling you. She's like, does Mustafa abuse it? She's not putting the camera on her. She's not putting, and she's like, you can clearly see that Kylie, that 16-year-old girl, is trying to solicit an answer out of this 5-year-old girl that does not exist. Is Mustafa abusive? Does Mustafa abuse you? Yeah. I mean, this is the, this.
She's doing this, and she goes to her mom ex-boyfriend and wants to tells him like she wants
You
to
can
kill
clearly-
Mustafa, so she's planning. Who's behind
The same
this?
ex-boyfriend that says, I wake up with that 16-year-old in my bed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is so much in this case.
This is necessary. This is very important thing. If
So Amy Ashworth is relying on individuals to talk about Mustafa's character, about abusing Dorothy and the kids, when there's home videos that show how beautiful. Amy Ashworth refused to acknowledge there's home videos.
Yeah.
Google. You know, I find it disturbing. The LaToya Crabb case, Amy Ashworth is going hard on the LaToya Crabb case. You're familiar with the LaToya Crabb case? The girl
No.
that shot her husband in self-defense. She said he...
Prince William, their courthouse sort of exists in its own little universe, and for whatever reason, I just don't hear much about what goes on there.
You know, Amy Ashworth is interested in the ring camera in the LaToya Crabb case, but is avoiding the Mustafa Al-Jazairi Google Nest video, and
Yeah.
she's relying on kids that clearly tell you the police told us. I mean, these are vulnerable kids, 9, 10, that just lost their mother. If the police department is telling them that he killed your mom, he ran away, left your 5-year-old baby sister in the car, what do you think the kids are going to say? The kid says, I trusted Mustafa. I've always trusted Mustafa. Mom told me to trust Mustafa. This gives you insight that this kid but when the police are telling me that Mustafa ran away, left my 5-year-old sister, and we could have saved her if he hadn't run away, they're manipulating and weaponizing these kids. Why would you rely on kids that's been manipulated and weaponized by the police department and there's Google Nest inside the apartment? And they're saying that he's a bad driver, he does this for a he goes into oncoming traffic. Well, it's very interesting that the police department subpoenaed. This dash camera records a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or records over. It has a very large SD card. So Robert Drum says in this dash camera you can clearly see Mustafa door dashing the day before and the day before with Dorothy. So if you want to see if Mustafa is a bad driver, 1, the dash camera shows that he's not reckless. 2, the day before he's door dashing with Dorothy, and you can. Why would you ask a 9-year-old how is Mustafa's driving if you can see it on the dash camera that Mustafa's door dashing with his girlfriend? Now the police department is refused to subpoena the day before or the day before.
The warrant.
The warrant.
was specifically
Exactly.
written out in a way where they only wanted videos from April 5th.
Exactly. And the
So even
discovery.
though there's many other videos of Mustafa's drive, I mean, it's a dash cam, so there will be him driving in the car. They don't request all videos of the dash cam. They only specifically put on the warrant that they're looking for April 5th.
Brad, when you go into
Do they
evidence.com.
still have the raw data?
Yes.
So they could be, okay.
Yes. When you go into evidence.com, when you go into evidence, log into evidence.com, you'll only see the dash camera from that day. You're charging him with premeditated murder, and they don't think it's relevant to put the previous days into evidence.com.
Right.
Let's reset for a
Yes.
little. Mr. Haywood, so
I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
go in
yeah.
like
Yeah, we
9 minutes, just so you know.
Yeah, we want to conclusion for this meeting.
So, just very quickly, the ex-husband sent a threatening email to Dorothy the night before the accident that he was going to kill her and her boyfriend. This is on an email that I think my younger brother read off of Dorothy's phone, so it should be on her phone email. And the other thing is, Glenn Ford, when he was on the live chat online, he was admitting that he was watching Mustafa whenever he would come into the apartment complex, the neighborhood. Whenever he leaves, that he was watching him. He would know when Mustafa would go in and out, when he walked the dog. There's like, it's just odd,
That he admits that Mustafa doesn't know.
that we have all these recordings.
So you have a situation where the ex-boyfriend is watching his girlfriend and her new boyfriend, and she's moving.
Well, let's just reset for a little bit. So Mr. Haywood, Mustafa does not have a criminal record. When I say that, he's never been
Yeah, I know.
convicted
Yeah,
of a crime.
I don't know that.
Okay, his driving record is clear. He has maybe a speeding ticket from 3 years ago. And everything that the prosecutor has said to deny him bond has nothing to do with the case.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time she made up something about Mustafa crashing his car, giving someone traumatic brain injury, which should be something that you can easily identify. You look up police
Right.
reports, you pull up which car he was driving, accident reports, none of that exists, you know? And the second thing is, she claims that he threatened a correctional officer, which there's video, which we now know that there are videos that were subpoenaed by Blake from the jail that show.
In the discovery, you'll
That
see a
showed-
jail CCTV video of that day
Just
yeah,
a summary. So, two witnesses say Mustafa never threatened anybody.
Yep.
Okay, and the judge basically ruled that Mustafa should not be given bond.
Since we don't have much time, like,
Yeah.
we've got a year before this trial starts almost. I'm gonna learn all this stuff, so all the facts. It does really help to get the summary version from you and from others, just so I start getting my bearings and I know what's out there. And then also when I'm looking through discovery and the rest of the court's file, that I know what I'm looking at and kind of what to focus on. Just more generally about the representation, though. I mean, do you all have any questions about how it's going to go from here, or about me or my background or anything? I mean, that, like, if there's, you know, I've only met you all once before so far, so if there's,
I think our question is, we is there a way where you can file bond to have Mustafa on house arrest? And you know, I know you can negotiate with the prosecutor. You know, there could be talks between you and her, like, you know, give and take, you know.
so
What we can say from as a family, we can tell you that if, like, you know, in your negotiations, if you can tell the prosecutor that if Mustafa does get bond, that we're willing to shut off our social media, to not talk about the case, and to never even talk about it.
Yeah.
So, you know.
So I think, I don't know, I've probably had at least 25 murder clients at this point in my career. Only one of them has ever gotten bond, and that was last year. It's possible. It's not common, but it is possible. And I've heard of, you know, a handful in other cases who've gotten bond. Usually so I think of, like, litigation in general as, if you might, a lot of times when you're litigating something, by litigation I mean like a pretrial motion. So you might be looking to strengthen your case by, like, keeping a piece of evidence out, or, you know, getting the judge to admit an expert. So there's, like, that's the literal purpose of a lot of those motions, but other reasons to file pretrial motions are to open windows of opportunity, whatever you're trying to accomplish in a case. In a lot of cases, you know, when it's not, where you don't really want to go to trial, you're trying to open a window, you're trying to make the prosecutor worried so you can get, like, negotiate a very favorable plea deal. However, if your objective is like this, where you know you're going to trial and you want to get bond, there's the same sort of mindset there. The judge, the judge, you know, what was it, about a year ago at this point with the bond motion, a little less than 10 months? Yeah. So, like, there has been lots of litigation. The judge, if they saw another bond motion right now without more having happened in the case, the judge would be just like, you've not given me anything to reconsider. I've already made my ruling on this. If you give me new information, then maybe I'll reconsider it. Or, you know, actually, it might not even be that chill about it. It might be like, this, you know, stop wasting my time. So, like, the important thing is to have changed circumstances. So my thinking is this, like, to me, the most important thing, honestly, like, early on, one of the more important things is the venue change motion. I just feel like that seems like that, even if I don't win it shakes things up, and it highlights some of the misconduct of the prosecutors and investigators. That might be something that sheds some more light on this investigation and why the evidence isn't as strong as they keep claiming it is. In addition, I think that a number of the things that they're sort of loose ends with some of these factual issues, bringing some of those to the court's attention. Then, you know, once we have a couple months of it probably wouldn't be before 2 or 3 months from now, but maybe in, I guess that would be June or so, June, July. If once we've done some more on this, then maybe we've opened that window of opportunity, and the judge can see, okay, you've given me more here. I didn't know all this stuff had happened. Okay, yeah, you know, I think bond is appropriate. That's how I would look at it. The bond litigation itself is time consuming. I mean, the bond motion I had to write to get the guy out last year, it was actually because of police misconduct. It was because of police and prosecutorial misconduct. And he had been an exceptional detainee, hadn't had any problems in the jail, but also the police hadn't turned over, until 4 days before the trial, the police detective hadn't turned over her report to it, so we never had it. And then they also had an entire phone extraction they had given us, and despite us having asked specifically for it. So there's some pretty bad Brady violations, but we were able to lay out all of that out and be like, Judge, this is wrong. Like, the prosecutor's playing games. This is wrong. It shouldn't be my client who bears the brunt of this. Let him out. And the judge eventually agreed. But that's what it took. So just getting some traction with some of these issues, so we can show them to the judge, and then the judge will have the patience to actually listen and maybe consider it. That's what I think is the best approach.
And you know
But
that.
what good is some, she said, that's what I understand. We don't have anything new to show to the judge, like.
Yeah, he has.
He has to go
He has to
go through it.
He has
He has to go through it.
Mr. Haywood, just
But in the reality,
Well,
who
let's
had
just very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, this is the warrant that took Mustafa's freedom, basically from April 7th. Now, today, knowing what we know, body cams, reports, every piece of information on that warrant, you can easily disprove. They say that he had a extensive abuse history. Mustafa never had any incident report, I'm not even accusations. No incident report where there's abuse between him, Dorothy, and the children. That's clear. You know, that's easily verified by pulling the police reports.
Some of the stuff that also you should be aware, like, what's more important than getting bond is winning the trial. If it ends up that by having a motion for bond, we're giving away a strategy that would be better to be a surprise at trial, then it might not be a good idea to bring some of that stuff up. I mean, there's a lot of the stuff you guys are thinking about, and that lawyers have thought about, that I bet that the prosecutor hasn't really fully digested and may not be prepared for. I mean, they're approaching this case with blinders on. Like, you wouldn't say some of this incredibly dumb stuff and recklessly like they have if they weren't approaching this with blinders on. If they were looking at this objectively with an open mind. So, like, it's quite possible, as I see it, that they just haven't been thinking about some of these things. And if we put them in a motion, okay, fine, we win the battle, but we might lose the war. So what we need to do now is work hard. I need to get more familiar with the case. We need to do some litigation and then see what's possible. If it's possible to do a bond motion, I don't want him in jail a day longer than is possible. You know what I mean?
He's been in solitary confinement.
It's just like, yeah.
They beat him. They sexually assaulted him.
Well, part of a venue change motion also, in addition to that, I would do a motion to move him to a different jail. And there's actually a statute on this.
But Brad, where would you move him? If you move him to Rappahannock, he sued Stafford County. So
No.
Rappahannock is worse. Fairfax is even worse.
I'd say the Fairfax jail is better than Prince William.
We need to process the.
Yeah.
Arlington is
Yeah,
better,
but-
Alexandria is better. If it were one of those
We
places.
do wanna move from jail to jail.
Yeah.
You can talk to the jail and move him
To a different
better
unit, a better unit.
units, like,
I mean, why is he in
There's someone-
solitary for 2 years?
yeah, the good, like, there's
I can't
unit-
control anything about
Yeah.
how any given jail does its own security and its own classification. That's something I can't control. There is a legal mechanism for moving someone to a
It's really
different jail.
powerful.
Did you see that video where he was dragged unconscious by jail officers
I've
from
not
one
seen
jail?
that yet. They haven't actually.
No,
made
we
the-
have it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If
You wanna play it really
if
quick?
you change
I've gotta
venue,
go.
Yeah.
So
Ahmad,
if there anything,
yeah, if
I
you
gotta get
change
out, so-
venue, it's
Yeah.
good, because Judge Weimar is not their person. Judge Weimar and Sarah Sami, they have like some,
So far, they've been ruling
Something
against the
like that.
evidence. I mean,
Yeah.
Sarah Sammy says outrageous things, and Judge Weimar just rules for her, regardless of the evidence.
And it's very short.
it's good, the judge is still in the
I mean, you can fast forward through it. What? This is May 24th.
What if every
I don't think it came with that council. So they go in for a little bit over a minute. They have a taser pulled out, and this is how they carry him out.
This is around the same time that we're talking about Mustafa's falsified police reports. We have an audio of the conversation between Mustafa and the drum, and then this happens.
Mustafa's innocent.
He
Mustafa
hits him on the
probably-
head, he kicks him, and then Mustafa, you can clearly see his limped over, and then when you zoom on his feet is barely touching the ground, he's being airlifted.
right.
What justifies 6 young correctional officers rushing into a cell only to take out a unconscious, half-naked Mustafa
Right, right.
And then these are the images.
from his injuries 2 weeks into,
This is from a visit, a jail visit. Okay, that's his head, right there.
has bumps all over his head. By the way, this is a solitary confined inmate. The only person that has access to him is correctional officer.
Right.
So you can't say another inmate beat him. His head has craters, has bumps. This is 2 weeks. His arm is 3 times the size of a normal arm.
This is his arm.
And he has not been given medical. This is his arm. He has not been given medical. To today, no medical.
And the jail incident report completely lies. They say that 3 officers escorted him, that they all slipped on water, and that was the end of it. That nothing happened that day. But, I mean, clearly, there are 6 officers, not 3. Mustafa's being carried, half naked down a flight of steps, what?
And you know that in Sarah Sammy in courts, the thing that really makes me upset is in court she says, "Your Honor," and by the way, this is before we got the videos, before we got the pictures, she says, "Your Honor, Mustafa is imagining he's being abused inside the jail." And Mustafa finally talks to Judge Weimer and says, "Your Honor, I've been beaten, I've been sexually assaulted, I'm being denied medical." Judge Weimer laughed at him.
He laughs and he says, "Get him out of here."
And by the way, I have a recording of the proceeding of court. I'm gonna supply you with that.
Okay.
Of the
Yeah,
bond, I have,
go
of the bond.
It's in this court,
Yeah.
it's at Manchester, and so.
Brad, thank you for giving us the time,
that's
sir.
what you're- obviously we'll be talking about that.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. You know, like, what's your anticipation for having the vehicle examined, the SD card, files from the dash cam? Like, what's just a general opinion of yours? How long do you think before they get to that?
I have no idea at this point.
Yeah.
They still haven't given me, I just signed that protective order last week, so they're supposed to be providing me discovery, I don't have it yet, and I don't have the, data from the other lawyers, so like there's so much for me to get through with that. My intention with those funding motions last week was basically to get some help. So, from other people to help review discovery. Once I start divesting some of it, I don't know how much more funding I'm gonna get. Like, they gave me a total of $45,000 for different things. But the digital forensics guys are expensive, it's like $100 an hour. So when I give them anything, I wanna make sure that what I give them is what we definitely need, so I don't waste the funds that we have for them. So I don't know if I can give you a timeline.
No.
Everything, we'll get to it as soon as we can get to it.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
Glenn Ford is being subpoenaed by Amy Ashworth, the ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Would you be able, see, I have a theory on what's happening here, and I'll think, would you be able to subpoena the cell phone communications and the emails for Glenn Ford, Kylie, the individuals that's involved, that we think are lying about everything?
Maybe. Yeah, I'd have to get a little deeper into the case.
Yeah.
It's like you have to have a you have to have, what is like standard? You have to swear that the stuff will be material. So I just have to determine whether it is or not, and then we'll see.
But I think, like you said, when you get more familiarized with the case, I think that's when you can say to a judge, like, hey, this information wasn't brought, front and center, and I think, that's when you can at least attempt to get them out on bond.
Brad, would you be able to sue to unseal discovery?
This is what we're talking about. There's motions to compel discovery, but that's not to unseal discovery, and there's motions to compel disclosure of things they haven't given us yet. Those are the types of motions you can file.
Why is Amy Ashford sealing off all the body cams, all the discovery? Why is she sealing off everything? I mean, look at now, having everything in my possession, I can tell you why she's sealing it, because there's police
Misconduct.
police misconduct.
I'm gonna be late to court. No,
Brad, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, we appreciate your time, and we appreciate all the work you do,
Absolutely.
Thank you.